Hi, Matt. How are you?
I'm good, and you?
Just fine, thank you.
Hey, thanks for agreeing to spend some time here with us today.
My pleasure.
Yeah, what I'd like to do is just hear a little more about your most recent campaigns. I know it was a combination of online and in person, and would love to hear about that. And also, more specifically, a little around, you really, when I talk to you, you always talk about how you have this way of transitioning, from the online to from the venue-based environment to the online, and that you've done a good job of that. I'd love to hear kind of how you did that. And then the other one is, what did you do uniquely or maybe differently that seems to engage the attendees? How you did that. So maybe start out with the first one. What was your take on transitioning from live to virtual?
Well, I was terrified, to be honest with you. I'm a real animated, on my feet type of instructor, so that was very difficult for me, and I don't like change, but I kind of had to. This class, the last one that I taught, had originally been scheduled in March, so obviously that didn't happen with COVID. And in July, they said that we could go back to teaching again here in Louisville. So I taught the two classes live, but I had a lot of individuals that didn't want to show up for that. They were like still a little, skeptical of everything because of the virus. So I was asked, can you do this as a Zoom meeting? I was like, well, yes, I can. And I had no idea what I was doing, and it was kind of terrifying. But once I did, it worked pretty well. I set it up. You guys set me up with the Zoom program, and it went well. There was just, there was only three of them this first time. I have to admit, it was just those couple that didn't want to show up, and it was great. They were there, and of course, none of them had their cameras on. And I was like, well, I can't do this. I'm gonna be talking to a blank screen. So I just kind of adjusted with them. I was like, okay, guys, not fair. If I have to have my video on, you have to have yours on. And they all were like, oh, and the one woman said, I look horrible. I said, well, so do I, honey. It's been a long day. I said, just do it from here up so I can see your eyes. And everybody kind of laughed. And I just, I kind of made them, shamed them into it, if you will, turning on the video, which helped because I could look at their faces, right? And then, I just started directly asking them questions, just like, all of us as instructors have had some tougher classes where everybody is sat, like a lump on a log, and you ask a question or you try to crack a joke and it falls flat. You're like, well, alrighty then. So I had the same thing with them. It was really kind of reserved. And so, of course, I had their name. So I started picking on them by name. And then they kind of have to answer you. And once you get one person talking like normal, the rest of the class will kind of relax and join in. And I was fortunate. Not one of them stood up. Well, one stood up and let the dog out once, but other than that, nobody left. They were engaged. They were on time. They were on time for the second class, which for me was very telling. I didn't have an actual, you know, Zoom version of the class, so I had them come by the office and pick up their materials because, like I said, this was really very last minute and kind of fly by night, if you will. And they came and picked up their books, and they could follow along with me in the books. And I taught the class just like I normally would. I went through it. It did go faster. I think that was because, I don't know, maybe amount of people for starters. It was such a small amount. Less questions at first. I didn't have my handouts, my whiteboard, things like that that I normally use to expound upon things. So the first session went faster. The second session, I took the whole 3 hours, believe it or not, right there in front of the screen. And we took a brief break. They came right back. They were engaged. I was pretty fortunate. It was good. And all three are coming in for appointments. So
Yes.
I can't beat that with a stick.
Well, that's my next question. So you stole the thunder.
Oh
Um,
no.
how would you, I guess my next question was around, conversion rates to, one-on-ones or lab sessions, and conversion to, if you have the information, conversion to becoming clients. Tell me a little bit about that.
I do. I've been pretty successful. So I didn't separate this last class out from the rest of them. I just did an overall. And I've taught 5 different sessions, of the 2 classes each since I've been with FMT. And my conversion ratio for having them come in for a lab session is 76%.
Okay.
And my conversion rates, once they come in to make them into clients, is 61%.
Okay.
So it's pretty decent, and they stick. And in some of those, I just picked up one uh, about 3 weeks, 4 weeks ago. That was from May of last year, May of 19. So I keep in contact with them. And just because it's not right at that time, I'm of the philosophy that they came to this class for a reason. And eventually they are going to sit down with me,
Yeah,
eventually, the majority of them. So um, I stay in pretty close contact with them.
that's great. Are there any techniques that you use that you think that makes that transition from the class to the lab or the one-on-ones that seem to work for you that give you that 70+% conversion rate?
I really, really, really stress the importance of a financial plan. Okay. And actually sitting down and talking to somebody. And I don't do it in a salesy way at all. But when I do sit down with them, or when I'm up in front of the class, I actually really don't bring it up too much the first session, just that today's version of, financial planning, you really need a financial planner as a facilitator to bring all the different pieces together. So that's what I sort of pose myself as, is that facilitator to make it all come together for them. And in the second class, I'll bring it up a couple of times, when we're talking about different types of investments, I bring up how you can have an advisor, and this is what an advisor will do for you. And I'll bring up that a financial plan is important. And at the end of the class, I tell them, look, part of what you signed up for, you get me for a 1 hour complimentary session. Please take advantage of that. And I said, there's no obligation, no nothing, but come and sit down with me and just let me look at what you have. And I can give you just a broad overview of it, and maybe you'll feel better about what you have. Maybe you'll realize there's something you need to change, and you don't have to do anything with me, but let me just take a look at it for you on a personal basis. I really hope you do. And then you have your evaluation forms. Please fill those out. And then I stress too that if they absolutely don't want to talk to me, please indicate that on the form and I won't call you. But if you do want to talk to me, I'll get back with you. So I use that. They bring up the form. I get a chance to schmooze with them a little bit after class, which I really miss that on the online version a lot. But, just talk with them. And then I follow up. And within 24 hours from that second class, they have a phone call from me
Yeah.
to set that up. So I think being prompt on that is very important. And I write a thank you note out that goes in the mail the next day. Thank you for taking time. I think those are really important things to use as a follow-up. They get Christmas cards from me. They get birthday cards. I track them with my CRM always. I have a program that Marketing Central that we use, that once a month they get something that's investment related, just some piece of information that they would need. And I can kind of track to see, are they opening it? Are they reading it? And if they, block that they don't want communication anymore, then I'll stop, but,
Sure.
but they usually don't, they read it anyway. And that's why they come back to me sometimes months, or in this case, a year later.
Yeah, a year later. That's a great
Yeah.
story. So, anything that was unique from a standpoint for that recent online class, because it sounds like you got, like, everybody came in, right?
Yep.
So was there anything, you mentioned the difference between doing venue-based, and it's a lot easier to do that, schmoozing, right?
Yes.
In the online environment, you still got them to come in.
Mm-hmm.
Was there anything unique to that, or is it just that you did a really great job in the class, and that just transitioned easily to want them, or for them to want to come in and meet with you one-on-one?
I think they were good students. I think that had a lot to do with it. My numbers that came in for this last class were so much lower, not just the online version, but just even the in-person. I mean, it was a teeny tiny little class, but the quality of the students that came in. So I'm thinking that, a year and a half ago when I started, I would get some in that were not real, they were enthused, but they weren't serious. These individuals that are coming in now, I feel like they're a lot more serious. They mean it. There's a reason why they're coming in. I think there's a lot of uncertainty in the market right now. You look at the market today and you can definitely see that, but they're wanting some direction. And the ones that are willing to risk the virus, if you will, or take the time to learn a new way of doing things through Zoom, I think they're much more serious about it and they're going to be better prospects overall.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I appreciate that. Anything you want to add from a standpoint of what you're doing either before, during, or after the class that might be interesting or unique that helps you do such a great, a job of what you do from a seminar perspective of driving new clients for yourself?
I think just definitely not being salesy, just being very personable and open. I'm the same age as most of my clients, I'm right there with them. So I can have that connection with them and say, I'm right here with you. I understand. Um, I come at it from a very friendly approach and I do a ton of follow up. Like I said, I mean, I'm on it immediately following up because strike while the iron is hot. I guess that's the old saying. And they're
Yeah.
in there, they're thinking about it. I don't want to let that cool off. So I'm very, very, very diligent about being, in connection with them immediately. I think that's a big part of bringing them in.
Yeah, no, that's great. And from a product service perspective, is there anything, what is it that, I know the planning part is very important, but is there anything different or unique that you're finding from a product or service offering that you're providing?
I'm very holistic. So I started my career 21 years ago in insurance and Medicare specifically. So for my clients that are closer to that Medicare age, I do a ton of Medicare planning with them, Social Security planning, which I think a lot of people don't do. They stick just to the money side, a lot of advisors. So I add that insurance component. I do a lot of life insurance, long-term care insurance. All of that goes in there. I work very closely with a couple of CPAs and estate planning attorneys. So I'm able to, and I've taken some classes on trusts and whatnot. So I'm fairly knowledgeable in that area enough that I know when they need a good attorney and what type of trust they need. And I can help to direct them in those areas so that I can be that facilitator that I talked about in the class. And then most of my business is advisory. So the cash that comes in, um, like I said, unless it's a smallish amount for some reason, I do most of it in annuities or advisory. So
Sure.
it's pretty spread across the board.
Okay, great. Well, Lenore, I want to thank you for your time today. I appreciate you sharing your experience and we appreciate your partnership.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
You're welcome.